Well, hi there. This is Margie Messer, and I'm sitting here with
Kobe Teal.
Kobe Teal. Is my young friend. Gosh, Kobe, I met you what 3, 4 years ago, I think.
It's got to be something like that now.
That
Towards
was
like the end of the years in college,
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. I was came back. Always miss New Mexico, and came back in search of new talent. And I wanted to get a band together, but someone said, "Oh, did you know there's a film school now in New Mexico State? You can do a music video." I had no idea. So I walked out there, and
Then you ran into me,
he
right?
didn't just run into you. I went in, it was like in the summer, I think, as I recall.
Was
I
it the summer?
walked up, there was nobody around, some kind of break.
Maybe it was Maybe it was in the middle of classes because I was working. I remember I was working
You were
at
sitting behind a
MSU.
desk. You were like a receptionist position or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And,
We had like this makeshift ticket booth.
oh,
We turned into like a receptionist
I thought it was
office.
cool. I mean, here's
Yeah.
this cute young guy, looked like a teddy bear. He's got these big brown eyes, and and I started giving him my maniac spiel about, "Ooh, and I'm this, and I can do that, and I can do this. And do you know anybody who can help me? I don't have any money, but blah, 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 blah." And he raised his hand, and said, "I'll help you." It was so sweet. I thought, well, that was easy. But it's been great because he's a loyal friend throughout the pandemic and everything, right here in the neighborhood. This is my first foray into podcast land. Uh, I like it so far, but
Yeah, I mean,
Kobe can interject what he recalls about what the ups and downs have been through for this idea of just doing a music video. We both agreed, didn't we? We wanted to do a music video.
yeah. In the very beginning, it was something like singing and cooking and a
Mm.
bunch, and making a video off of that.
All my favorite things:
Yeah.
food, dance.
But it was just hard to get things together because, as we all know, the world stopped like 4 months later, and then it hasn't really started up again yet, or maybe it has. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it has, but like after a while, it's just it's after a while the idea evolved, it mutated, it just
It's a virus. I decided I have to get over this hang up of being, prepared. And I really have this terrible hang up that I hate to sit in with bands, and because I don't know, I just like to rehearse. And Kobe said, let's just talk like we do as friends. So
Yeah, since we've been together now for years, so let's just
yeah, and I hope
we talk a lot enough, so let's just sit and talk. So we were talking about the music video. Like,
yeah.
what kind of music were we planning to do again? Because I know you were into jazz, a lot of jazz musicians, but was that the kind of music you wanted to do? That video?
Well, honestly, not to like plug or brag, but my obsession my whole life has been kind of music. Not kind of, but I grew up in a musical family. My brother is a very talented classical violinist. He lives in Atlanta. And we would all sing harmony, and it was just natural. Mom played the piano, dad was a guitar player. But I was never, thought of myself as a singer until I was 28 years old, and I was fascinated with the voice. And my geeky side was indulging. I was studying in Houston the anatomy of the voice. And I went to meet with a great teacher named Kent Banbury, who had performed on Broadway and, oddly enough, in soap operas. And he taught me the bel canto method, which is all about, the anatomical structure of the voice. There's only one right way to sing. So the reality is, I can sing any kind of music, and I can't play, but I do love jazz, and I do love Broadway and all the Great American Songbook. All the movie musicals, because I feel like that's America's classical music.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about musicals and Broadway and jazz, is there a kind of, you wanted to make a music video, did you have any kind of inspiration? Like, what kind of music?
Lots of inspiration, but,
Like-
dreams are free, Kobe, but visions take money. And I was stupefied that we have a great jazz program here at NMSU, and all the young talented people leave because they feel like there's nothing to do here. So I kind of thought, if I'm going to get this done, I need to break it down to just a duo, maybe myself and a piano player, and do a little medley, variety, whatever. One of my big dreams would be to do something similar to Pink Martini. I don't know if you're familiar with that group.
I don't really know that group too much. What are they?
Oh, they're out of Seattle, and they do all of the retro stuff with harmonies, and it's just top-notch singing and top-notch orchestration. They can do any kind of rhythm. They do beautiful bossa novas, but their name belies their, or I should say, clarifies their style. Pink Martini. It's very sophisticated. It's very romantic. It's big band days. It's jazz age. I think when life was simple, and I also have kind of a bone to pick with people who say, well, I just sing standards. All my life people say, well, I just do standards. Well, this is our American classical music, as I mentioned. And if you slop through it, you're just remiss.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that. I grew up on country music, but when I was about 15, I was tired of that. And then I fell in love with Blood, Sweat, and Tears and all the, the horn section and Three Dog Night and their vocal harmonies. And then I also was a big fan of Fleetwood Mac in college. I just, music is music. You take a song, you break it down, and if you have talented players, hopefully you can come up with your own little stamp on it, your own little style on a classic. But I definitely don't write music. I would never want to say that I can compose music when I can interpret things like George Gershwin and Cole Porter and Duke Ellington at a much higher level than I would ever even begin to think that I could compose. So I'm not a writer. But looking for players. Hey, are you out there?
But going back to music and musicians, just like me and you both have a distinct difference in age.
Oh yeah.
But
I could be your great grandmother, I think, if I started real young. But I'm not, and that's fine.
But I'm still a big fan into music and different kinds of Broadway. One of my favorites is like a classic, Grease. I've always enjoyed Grease.
Oh Lord, yes.
Grease as a kid.
And the dance, so athletic.
Oh yeah, and I did not grow up, unfortunately, on the Broadway, like on the physical in person play of Grease. I grew up on the movie with John Travolta in it.
Me too. I've never seen the Broadway. I think they just recently took it to Broadway, didn't they?
Did they?
I think yes. Oddly enough, I guess if there's a norm in this crazy business of show business, normally you go off Broadway first, and then if you make it in Buffalo or whatever, they take you to Broadway, and then if you're lucky, they'd make a movie. Well, now all bets are off, especially because Broadway was completely dark during the pandemic. And they've come up with some new, like they've got a musical out now about Princess Diana, a rock and roll. I can't imagine. I hope it's good or she'll roll in her grave, God bless her.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing a rock and roll, but maybe, I don't know. I just don't have that gene to dream up anything original, as I said, except for my interpretation of what's already been proven.
I mean, I think you can come up with some pretty original stuff. I mean, we're doing...
Maybe for the podcast, but as far as writing music, maybe I could learn when I'm 70, which isn't that far off.
I mean, look, there's nothing stopping you from learning. You said you're always a big fan of interpreting the music, and you want to do like a music video, which is you and a pianist. You could always just pull a Billy Joel and just do the piano yourself too.
Oh God. Honestly, Kobe, I have been so blessed and so spoiled at the same time by working with some greats like Dr. Bill Lee. He was amazing, and people that are in the know in the music education world know him as the music educator par excellence. He was so amazing in the way he would reach students, and he was just a personal friend. I met him after he retired. I went to his house in San Antonio because I had this little brunch gig, and somebody said, this guy can play the piano, and I was kind of jaded because I'd been auditioning people, and frankly, people will lie. Can you play? Yeah, I can play, and then they can't read a chord chart. And the music I'm talking about, you've got to be literate. You have to know how to read music. And so I was frustrated, and my friend said, this guy is great. I said, can he read music? I said, are you kidding, Eddie? He taught everybody how to read music, and sure enough, he was Grammy and Pulitzer nominated for serious composition. And there's a whole backstory, but I'm glad I was paying attention. And we had a wonderful friendship, and I just learned so much from him, just hanging out by osmosis. And we gigged around San Antonio, and it's just, I feel like if I don't use the free music education he shared with me, which I could never have afforded, would have probably been $100,000 in today's money to share with other people. I feel like that would just be wrong morally. I would be remiss. I have to share it. So I don't know where it's going, but you know, musicians need to know how to read this music out of respect for the music. And another thing he taught me, he said, well, sitting in with bands is very good experience. And I was terrified of that because, like I said earlier, I like to prepare and rehearse. And he says, just learn the songs at home and learn them in 3 different keys. I'm like, whoa, okay. So I'd plunk it out on my little, keyboard, different keys for pickup notes and learn it in my head. The reasoning behind that, Kobe, is that, okay, you go to sit in with a band and there's a horn player. For example, maybe the horn player can only play the song in B flat. And if you, as a chick singer, only know it in 1 key, they have an attitude because they want to look good too, naturally. And I didn't want to be labeled as a chick singer, wannabe, whatever. I wanted to be known as somebody who came equipped. So I learned a lot about music and also life, from that man. He was great, and we all miss him. We all loved Bill, and we miss him.
So it sounded a lot like you got a lot of your prepared mindset too from him as well. Like
Absolutely.
Coming in with other people, need to make sure you're able to adapt to other people who might be
very
different.
good lesson. Do your homework, and it served me well because. And my mother, when we were growing up, she said, pick something that you can do when you're by yourself and there's nobody around and there's no money that can entertain you. And for us, it was always music. So you really are never lonely if you have music in your life, but it's meant to share with people.
Yeah.
And his whole thing was like, do your homework. So I
mean,
do. I still work about 2 hours every day on music at home.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if I don't, something is amiss. It's like, oh, I forgot to brush my teeth. It's my norm and it's my comfort. It's my therapy. If I'm sane at all, it's probably because of music.
Well, I mean, that's good. Music is considered by a lot of people to be like a universal language. One of the best examples is that the Beatles showed up from England,
right,
came to America at this point where America was kind of really not wanting to do anything with anybody.
What do you mean? Because of the Vietnam War.
Not just that, but there was the whole Red Scare with McCarthyism.
Oh,
we were calling everything communism.
Right.
Then the Beatles showed up in the 60s.
Totally changed the mood. Lightened it up.
They came in from there, and then as you also know, they exploded all over the world. Like another big person who did other massive people that their music is universally loved is Elvis. Elvis is still loved all throughout Africa, even though there's the whole big
they still have sightings. I saw Elvis in Nambia.
Well, the whole
nobody wants to believe he's dead. He was that iconic, right?
Exactly. But even some people going back to Africa again, the whole joke, a lot of the rumor jokes that his music and his dancing bit off African culture. I'm
not surprised. It was so rhythmically perfect and so staccato, that staccato thing going on, maybe.
Yeah.
And
it was so much that they had to censor him every time it was on TV, remember? Do you remember that? They
yeah.
couldn't show him below the waist.
Even one of my top 5 favorite movies, Forrest Gump, right? Remember that scene where he's, he's on his little crutches and he was supposed to be the inspiration, I think, for Elvis and that. He is and was an American classic. I love the classics, classic food, classic music. Classic just means it endures,
Now, we talked a lot about music. What do you like to do with food? I remember when we first got together, our big plan was to do something.
A cooking show video, a pilot for a cooking show, right?
Yep. And one of our test videos we did for it was making a lasagna, which went
sideways.
Which went sideways, which was good, bad. I thought it tasted good.
The food was edible. It wasn't that. It's that I was nervous in front of the camera, and I think I kept dropping things. And at one point, I let out a couple of, succinct little curse words. And it's funny, if you can dig that up from the can, it certainly is blooper worth, if there's such a word. I just coined that word, blooper worth. I like bloopers. When I'm really tired and I can't find anything to watch on TV that I'm interested in, I just watch all the bloopers.
Well, you know what?
I sleep like a baby because I feel like I'm 10 years old again, just laughing at stupid stuff I don't even understand.
Thinking about food, something I've been watching a lot lately. There's a YouTube channel called, Food Insider that I watch.
Really? Never heard of this one.
They do a lot of different national and sometimes even international looks into different kinds of food. Like one of my favorite things is that they have a series where it's called the 50 States, where they go to each state and poll and research, because Insider is like is a journalism like company.
Oh,
They do
what
like
do they poll? People's favorites or the?
they do like a bunch of different stuff. Like one of my favorite ones that they went to each state and found each state's favorite dish.
Not just a category like favorite dessert or favorite
They
salad.
do have favorite dessert. Like they had one where like they had favorite donuts. They had another one where it was like every state's favorite pizza and slash pizza place. And like every state's favorite fast food.
How fun! Do they have like a little food truck and they come into town ringing the bell and everybody runs outside and says, "Hey, I'm hungry."
Well, and then they just go to like from to my knowledge, they go to like population centers and stuff like that, and it's look like what's the local like big popular thing. Like the obvious ones are like my dad, he's from Vermont. They're like if they're going like the top each state's like favorite dish or food in particular. My dad's from Vermont was maple syrup. Or that's America's major supplier of maple syrup. It all comes from Vermont. Yep. And going to New York, we should be able to guess what New York's is.
Pizza?
Exactly. Like, and even like here in New Mexico's was green chili. Again, not really that big a surprise, right? Of all things, New Mexico and green chili.
Oh, so they're coming up with an official food, maybe like they have an official. We have the Roadrunner's our bird, and yucca is our plant in New Mexico. They're going to the official food. Like New Mexico is going to be chili, you think, or is it already?
I wouldn't surprise me if it is already, but it's not like it's not an official thing. It's like their way of just like pulling. This is their personal list of what they found, and everybody's like their favorite thing. Like
what
like Montana's was huckleberries. I've never had huckleberries.
I love fried chicken. Was there a state that was aligned with fried chicken in this?
Kentucky.
Oh, there you go, Colonel Sanders.
Exactly. Course. Even Louisiana, their favorites were po' boys. You ever had a po' boy before?
Yeah, to me, I'm sorry, it's just a sandwich.
Yeah, but like it's a sandwich that's unique to them.
Yeah,
and I like my seafood. So like a sandwich with like the shrimp and stuff in it.
Seafood.
I love a good seafood like that. And Maine was of course like lobster, and like Maryland I think was crabs.
Wow.
And even they went to Seattle. Seattle's was coffee. And do you know why?
Because they make a fortune off of selling the beans. I don't.
Well, because Starbucks came from Seattle, and so their major one of their favorite things is coffee.
When you say about food, God, it's all coming back to me now. Celine Dion said, "Oh." When you and I met, and my husband and I, my late husband, God rest his soul, we were in Germany, and I went to cooking school for a week with the other officers' wives in Italy and a week in France. And I had this big dream that when we retired, we'd come back to New Mexico and open a bed and breakfast, and I could cook for people, and we could have a little parlor, old-fashioned parlor in this old house with a piano, and it'd be lovely. He didn't want to do that. And anyway, I was still dreaming. He's been gone 10 years now. I just want to share what I learned. I mean, you go to cooking school in Europe, and why not share what you learned? Well, my very best friend, speaking of Seattle, Donna Roy is out there, and we dreamed up this idea of the singing chef, where, it'd be like a comedy thing. I'm in the kitchen, trying to put something together, and I burst into song, or somebody knocks at the door. But she is serious about food in that she saves people's lives. She literally saves people's lives with diets. She's a kidney dialysis dietitian, has been for 35 years. And when they're waiting for kidney transplants, she gets them on a life-saving diet. And we have such this cute chemistry. She's about 5 feet taller. It reminds me of everybody's Jewish grandmother. I mean, everybody needs to have a Jewish grandmother in their neighborhood. Darling, don't worry, I'm going to cook for you. I'm going to give you the chicken soup's going to fix everything, even your broken heart. That guy was a loser anyway. But she doesn't have that accent. She's from Michigan. She has more like a little munchkin voice, but it's got authority. I can't do Donna's voice. I told her, I said, this would be such a hoot. You're telling people about how important it is to do this and that instead of this, that, and the other. And why do you have kidney disease? Because you didn't take care of your blood pressure. And I couldn't do that because I'd be cracking up laughing. And I can just be the dumb jock in the kitchen that bursts into song and dance. So this is our ongoing fantasy. We've been dreaming about this for 20 years. But the food thing's important. And I was very content staying home during the pandemic. I never did order food to be delivered. I felt like that's for rich people. But I put on my little mask and I go to the store and nobody was at the store. So I got the pick of the produce. and I'd come in and I got back in the groove of cooking just for myself. And then I'd freeze things. And for me, cooking is like an avocation, a pastime. And I just love it. I mean, I've made some disastrous mistakes when I don't use recipes, but if you stick with the classics, you can't go wrong. A great omelet with waffles with real maple syrup, if you can afford it. I think maple syrup now is really expensive.
Oh,
what
yeah,
I
maple
hear.
syrup's like
and
real
that's why I
expensive.
asked you, is it still their food? Because I thought maybe they were running out of maple trees.
Oh no, it's not that they're running out of
Gosh.
maple trees. That's never been the issue. The whole issue, again, according to my dad, who was up there
He
like
should know.
doing this, it's the
Doing
way
what?
it's like tapping trees to get the.
He did that for a living?
He didn't do that for a living. Like he grew up. My dad is in his 60s now. He grew up on like a farm. He's a he's a farm boy from Vermont.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He had farm life. Apparently, was really rough back then, and
It still is, I guess.
yeah. But the whole thing is that like he would tap trees, and the whole thing, according to him, is that the really expensive maple syrup is the syrup that doesn't have the most flavor.
Oh.
They wanted this. They want this like really like burst, like what comes out of the tree first, and that's
Like virgin olive oil is more expensive?
yeah, exactly. Where it's the whole idea that like what comes out according to him, like the second or third like
Tapping.
Tapping is what gets that's what gets most of the flavor out of the tree, because the first. Again, I don't quote me on this. I don't know the specifics. I'm
That's
sure
cool
I
to
could.
know, though.
I'm sure he can tell you all about it. But it's just one of those things where it's like the specifics of it. Of like the more expensive it is, it's not always the most best tasting one. But real maple syrup is not the same as like Mrs. Butterworth's like syrup, because that's
full of corn syrup and all that stuff. I grew up on that stuff, all the processed food and whatever.
different
And I lived
syrup.
with a migraine from the time I was like 10 years old. I wonder. And then when I was 20-something, they tested me for allergies. And all these food allergies, that's a whole other story. It's just easier to, if you can afford to eat fresh, certainly it's better for anybody. But the food industry is fascinating, really.
Yeah.
And people, I tell you, raising Donna and I, another reason, we really wanted it to be fun but educational. That people have screwy ideas about food, I mean, I know a lot of people truly do, Kobe, have gluten intolerance. Okay, that's a real thing, but self-diagnosis is not very bright. You do that, if you got a stomach ache because you ate too fast and you ate too much, and you say, "Oh, I'm gluten intolerant, so bread is bad." Well, let's use our common sense when it comes to food. It should be one of the finer things in life, and it's just. The people that I've met that are the oldest and the healthiest have a real healthy relationship with food, which is something that a gentleman who was 92 told me. He says, and he was a retired doctor from the Army, and he used to play golf every day, and he had these little tricks. He liked to drink his scotch, but he would always every day eat a bunch of fresh asparagus steamed, because it detoxed the scotch, and then he would be on time for his early tea time, no hangover. The guy was 92 years old. I mean, I'm not a scotch drinker, but I was listening to this guy. He had some sense. So that's the thing with, what I'm hoping to do going forward with Donna and maybe you. And I don't know. What else we got today?
I don't know, but right now all this talk of food is making me hungry.
Uh-oh. Well, I guess we're going to sign off now and figure out what I have a huge watermelon in the refrigerator. I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah.
And it's so heavy. If you can pull
I
it
have something
out.
else to talk to you about food after
I
this,
want you
too.
to help me carve it up. I can't even, it's so huge, I can't even lift it. It dominates my whole fridge. And we'll have some watermelon if nothing else. Send some home with you.
Definitely. Okay, so thank you everybody who listened. We really appreciate it.
And we want to give a link so you can give us your feedback, don't we?
Yeah. It'll be down in the description. It'll link to the websites for us to talk about, but also down in the comments, ask any questions. Let us know what anybody thinks about this. It would be really appreciated to have any kind of feedback.
Yeah, and if you know any musicians who want to hang with an old lady who has a lot of experience, and I do have perfect pitch. Oh boy, it'll be fun. I am looking to put together a little jazz trio, or piano, bass, and drums is ideal nucleus to start with. I know a great horn player here, but he's waiting in the wings. So yeah, please send some talent my way and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Be safe out there. God bless. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
Bye.